Welcome to another episode of the HealthCast. I'm super excited today to have Jonathan McCoy, CEO and founder of Vcare Companion. Welcome, Jonathan.
Great to be here. Thank you, Philip.
Really excited to learn more about Vcare Companion. I'm just going to give the floor to you. Can you tell us about Vcare Companion's mission?
Sure. Happy to do so. Vcare is focused on how we can really help the challenges facing the majority of our healthcare environments today, and namely workforce management, burnout. We've from day one incorporated input from nursing, from people and care staff to look at how can we help. So we didn't come to it with a preconceived notion, here, they should get this. It's what do we need to help care for each other better? How can we engage so that it's meaningful from the beginning? So the very beginning of the genesis from Vcare, and which was really a root that came out of a company I own called Family Care Space. And Family Care Space was developed. I owned a memory care community, and I looked at the poor support and the doom for failure that we put many of our care staff workers in. No-win situations, whether it be overburdened, just too many things to do, not enough people calling out, and suddenly situations can escalate very quickly. So I looked at creating an environment to help with care staff. We did a platform called Family Care Space for the community, and it was very successful. I don't think I've ever heard, and it's not me, it's a team, but I'm very happy that I was helpful in initiating this, but care staff saying the system had their back. It really meant something for the care staff. So what was it? It was basically a real-time system so that staff knew where the staff members were. They could create an alert wherever they were by touching their badge. There was a sensor on the badge. We also had a family portal components. Family members who have a loved one in the community, and they may be all over the country, care staff in that community, if there's a really cool moment, what have you, they can take out their smartphone device, capture video, conversation. That gets vetted before it goes to the family in our case, it was an executive director. All of that workflow is laid out. And then family would get these updates about, here's mom telling a story, etc. So it was really getting close to the care staff workers. We eventually sold the community, and it really a statement of how well it was accepted. Normally when a building is being sold, staff leave, and agency is part of a budget to do that transition. We did not use $1 of agency. The staff were very happy that the company coming in was going to keep Family Care Space. We had a number of people say the system had their backs. We had a couple of staff members left for about 50 cents more an hour about 3 months later, wanting their jobs back, highlighting the fact that they had their back with the way the system worked. The community was called Sanctuary Care. So that's the genesis behind my own involvement with respect to senior living or care providing. And I was approached by a robotics person who saw what we were doing and the innovation and said, listen, I think there'd be a great melding of your philosophy, the concepts here with robotics and ways that we can really help workforce, because there's a tremendous challenge with documentation, for example, right? With just keeping track of the records with the residents and what has to be done in shift changes and how data gets, brought from one care staff member and to the next. And it's really a challenge. So 2 years ago, I said, let's pull together some people to sort through this and start with dialogue. So we pulled in some operators, some individuals involved with the care delivery side. We looked at, could robotics play a role there? What kind of role could it be? What threat could be perceived if this robot is on the floor? There's a lot of, but let's be real, right? That's the thing.
I worked in pediatrics, so that robotics could be, child size or small, maybe small adult size.
Yeah, I mean, it's 3 foot, about a foot wide. And what we found actually was kind of cool. We replaced the computer on wheels, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to push this computer cart into the room. And you don't have to sit facing the computer screen and click away in the EMR or whatever it is while you're doing your assessments, right? Now you have the ability with CC to follow the nurse within 3 feet, so her hands are free or his hands are free. It also does vitals, so there's no need to bring a separate vital tree. So you've simplified the whole process of going into the room where the patient is. CC has ambient listening capabilities. So when I now have my assessment with Mrs. Smith, I'm looking at her face to face. And so we have our conversation back and forth. We're going to talk about more than just those static questions that you see on a form, right? We're going to talk about the weather, her kids, a birthday maybe, but we're also going to talk about, how are you feeling? What's your pain like? Those are important elements to do the appropriate assessment, but it's a conversation, right, with her. And so Cece's listening to all of this in real time. It's taking that data, and you can see it on the screen as a care staff person being filled in. So age, date of birth, general feelings, conditions, etc. We also have a number of large language models in the background. So for example, if something's mentioned about, a blood pressure spiking, that could trigger with the other conditions, possible things to look for, to ask about. So we'll prompt the caregiver in those areas, with the net effect being when you're done as a caregiver, a nurse with that patient, you leave the room, all your documentation is done, and it's probably done more thorough than it has ever been done because of the nature of it. And if the EMR allows you to submit it as is, it'll go in. But I do want to talk about one of the challenges with healthcare that everybody faces, and it's the gorilla in the room, and that is the EMR systems. They're mandatory regulatory reason they're in the room, right? We need to keep records, get it totally, and it's necessary. But the challenges are that because of the stranglehold, and I use that word carefully, but it is definitely the way, the EMR will not allow access to certain data or update to certain data, right? So in our example with the nurse, having the conversation with the resident or the patient, getting all this information, it would go into, in a PCC, a point-click care world, it would go into a progress note, and that's how it would be stored. In Epic, it's more granular. Certain elements can go into the system, but what we do is we keep track of what has been discussed, all the details, so it's available to the EMR, and whatever which way it can get in. We don't know just as much as anyone, and we're really relying on EMR vendors to open up more. But the counter to that is they're looking at that being their revenue maybe, and they do what we do, right? So, it's the big ship trying to get bigger, and it's us guys being innovative saying, hey, listen, we don't need to carry around this huge ship. We just need to do an assessment here. We need Mrs. Smith and the nurse to have a very real time together, and let's make sure that information is going to be captured clearly and done in the room and done. So the nurse doesn't have to spend overtime later on documenting things and fighting the EMR to get the data in. Agency doesn't have to come in because there's a lot of call outs because people are just overburdened with not only the amount of residents or staff or patients rather they have to visit, but also the documentation that goes with these assessments, right? It's pretty and complex. So we're offloading that considerably so. And we've been involved with a couple of different clients on a validation point of view, and we're pretty impressed with the feedback. We have three classes of ways that we can engage with the healthcare environment. One is we have the robotics piece. So if it looks like CC, our robot's called CC, Care Companion, could be delivering meds to the rooms, right? And having facial recognition, the various controls around that. So, you're reducing, staff going back and forth between rooms for a variety of things. That's a plus. There's a big plus in being able to capture the documentation when those assessments occur. That's a huge plus. There's the ability for CC at night to travel the hallways, and if using its computer vision recognition, if somebody's on the floor, off alerts, right? So it's got the ability to, if it's somebody on the floor, what is the protocol for the building? And we want to look at following that protocol. So make sure the alerts, alarms, and the location of where the incident is, of course, and who the resident is, pulling all of that data as much as possible, as quickly as possible, right? So the ability to do that, the ability to do telemedicine, doctors can come in, see through the face of our robot and move the robot around the room. Therapy thing, right? So, somebody has to walk and we'll see how their knee's doing. CC can move along with them, with the doctor looking through it and seeing, the necessary part of the body that they're interested in. I can go on. There's a lot here.
Yeah, totally. So so both in the floor setting or inpatient setting, like if you and I, rather, if we were in person, I would be communicating with a patient and CC would be in a supportive role behind me. And I think you also said in a telehealth capacity, I would then face CC and it would communicate the way we are now to, say, a patient, whether in a home setting or, say, a physician maybe can't make it in because you live in New Hampshire, I live in Colorado. Say there's a winter storm, a
Right.
physician could communicate with the patient in another setting via telehealth. It's cool.
Exactly. As well, families may want to connect with their loved one in the community, so we can utilize CC as basically a secure FaceTime scenario
Yeah.
for them. So it'd be like a group Zoom call, that kind of thing.
Pretty wild what you guys are taking on. So is CC currently, I wasn't sure if you said it's a future goal or if it's currently able to deliver meds.
Okay, delivering meds, it can deliver the meds. What
Yeah.
we need is the workflow for that community. And then we plug it in, because it's not just to bring the meds, right? You've got a med tech typically gets involved, but you have to register, the medications when it's being taken. It's got to fit the necessary rules. So we take those rules and we'll apply it in terms of where CC needs to be, what she needs to have. We've gendered CC, what she needs to have.
That's a good point too, Jen. That's funny.
We go through that process. So it's not,
Yeah.
here it is, now go figure it out. It's, how do you work today? And there may be things in that workflow or ways that it's done that you really do need a med tech to be there in presence. It does CCS facial recognition. So we take a couple of different profiles of the resident's face, providing they allow this to be. So we have the necessary forms for opting in. And then we actually can have the face position so we see the consumption. You create a little video file of that consumption. So not only do you know the meds were delivered at 3:21, you know that Mrs. Smith consumed them at 3:40, right?
Right.
That kind of thing, right? Or they weren't consumed.
Is CC actively being used right now in patient care?
There are locations where CC is being used. CC has been around for a while. Not CC as that name, but Temi as a robot that's a generic robot.
Yeah.
So what we've done is we've taken that generic robot and we're applying our various AI skill sets. And I must admit, it's pretty cool stuff, very advanced. The orchestration layer, and that's continual. That's what you'll see on our website. We just released that. This allows now, for example, shift change, which is typically 80% in that range of errors are attributable to the changing of shifts.
From my own experience, it's often chaotic, to be honest. It's busy, people are coming and going, there's coats are being put on and off, maybe a meal, and information is being exchanged.
Right. And there could be sticky notes, there could be, something might be written down, only half written down, whatever, right?
And I might, in my former role, I might have had, say on a busy day, something like I was in med surge, like a half a dozen patients. So that's a lot to communicate and to make sure you hit on the key points for each person.
So our orchestration layer, CC could be a tablet, a phone, but basically listening to the conversation. And so you're picking up what people are saying, also visualizing, if there's notes, documents, etc., having them append with it. But much like the assessment, now you have the ability during that staff or that shift change, CC listening, knowing the resident histories, right? Having all the detail behind it, what was previously done in the previous shift change, what's changed. So there's all this resident knowledge now that CC has. So when CC or somebody utilizing our continual on a laptop or a tablet or phone are able to get context to stuff, and when that new sheet of what we're going to do this next shift is developed, it's coming from a lot of that information that some of it's very obvious, some of it is partial, and some of it needs to be interpreted more. There may be, for example, a need for the lab work to be brought forward, right? So it knows to let the lab know, that Mrs. Smith needs the results, right? And staff would understand that when they're, it's that time when we should get it. So follow up, things like that. So it really helps reduce that, strain on trying to remember a lot of these bits and pieces. The data is really sad. It's sad how bad it can be. And it's not about fault. It's about, this is the world we're in. You can speak to this much better than I, Philip, but you're asked to do a lot in chaos. Right. And that by its very definition.
It's important work, but it's busy work. It's a lot of emotions to manage. And it's a lot of things to juggle. And these things are So, I joke with my brother sometimes. They're in the financial world and they'll be like, I can't talk right now. I have an emergency. I'm like, I got, we have people that can't breathe down the hallway. What's your emergency?
Yeah, yeah. I'll raise your emergency by my emergency. Yeah,
Right, right.
yeah.
Sounds like this is a tool to help prioritize and keep things streamlined.
Very much so. And it's not another application with a big footprint and a dashboard and all this stuff. The way Continuo works is we base it around the moment. So we're talking about shift change, right? So that moment, what's involved with that moment? So we'll assemble the necessary, we'll have the listening capability. So we're going to get the information. We may need stuff out of the EMR. We may need stuff out of pharmacy. We may need information that might come from some latest information regarding improvements in cardiovascular that's pertaining to this resident or this patient. It's pulls this stuff together for that moment, and you can save it, the output of it. But when that moment's done, all of the data goes back to wherever it came from. So we're not another data store where, from a compliancy security point of view, we build basically within the existing setup that a hospital or acute care system has, or
like within their EHR.
Yeah.
IT would help interpret that to the EHR. Is that about right?
Well, it's part of that. The EHR is only one of those systems. It's a big one, right? But we're inside the firewall, if you will. We're inside so that if we have to talk to radiology, we'll be able to do so. If we have to talk to pharmacy, we'll be able to do so. So it's not just EMR, but in many cases, this is interesting. Because of the way we can communicate to files and data, we actually, I won't say the name of the vendor, but it's probably, well, it is. We actually help them communicate to other parts of the system that they can't. Because, most of these EMR vendors, as you know, have been around a long time. Yeah. And they've got lots of pieces of different other vendors in their portfolio, and they have different names for the same thing. They have different data stores. It's a mess. I mean, I was talking to a developer at a large EMR company, and he was talking about before we can even make a change, we have to figure out what's impacted, how often is that change going to be presented, or where it's going to be presented, and what different names of that same thing. They have to go through a fairly exhaustive process before they can actually look at making any implementations and changes. So it's very complicated, kind of like you got to follow the noodle in a bowl of spaghetti. So we eliminate that stuff. We go to the pieces that are needed and pull that together for the moment, and then we let it go. Then it's gone.
I want to talk about the business side of things, but I have a couple more questions for you first.
Sure.
This one, I don't want you to laugh, might sound silly, but what do the arms do on CC?
There are no arms.
Okay, I thought there was like an add-on. I wasn't sure if I read that you could like add them on, like for different models have different functions maybe, and I was wondering what that are, but maybe I'm not saying it
right. We have the ability to add arms. Yeah. We don't have arms in the models that I'm talking about, the model and the different examples. And there's a sister company that is going to be delivering much like you think of Lego. Mm-hmm. So you would compose, it's called a cobot or a collaborative robot. So it's not a humanoid. It's if you go back, cobot, collaborative. Yeah. And if you think about the, I don't know if you got into the Star Wars world.
Sure. Yeah, but I grew up in the 80s. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, all those little robots that come out to fix the ship and, things like that. Those are cobots. They collaborate with humans to get things done. And that's how we see ourselves. If we have to free up more time for staff to be personal to the person they're caring for. Right. Yeah. That's why nurses got into the business. Right. And it's been, twisted to be glorified data entry people in EMR systems. CYA is kind of the mantra as opposed to how is she really feeling? I don't know, but I got the form done,
Yeah. Well said. Yeah. That's, we need to change that approach. Yeah.
You got to make some space for them so they can get back to eyeballs. And that's what CC's about with the documentation offload, with the ambient listening. And we do much, much more than just that. I mentioned some of those earlier here, but it is about freeing up time so that it's more human, people to people.
Where is, and you help me if I need to distinguish between Continuo and CC. You said CC is out there being used.
It's a robot, yes.
Two parts. I was curious about how it's being received, and you may have touched upon that, but I'm going to just throw out there again. And then second, I've worked in a variety of specialties throughout my nursing and nurse practitioner career. Where is CC fitting in terms of, ER setting, med surg is kind of this general setting, ICU, pediatrics, cardiology? Where does CC's role?
I love the question. We're right at validation phase. We've just released. So we are in the process of signing up. We're looking at beginning the Continuo. Let me describe. Continuo is orchestration and software only. It will work on CC, on a laptop, on a notebook, you name it, right? It'll get into the different systems that are necessary to support, for example, a shift change, right?
Yeah.
Whereas CC is a physical robot that we have applications on it that can be utilized, like I said, for rounding or for client or patient engagement or for telemedicine, the list delivering meds, etc. On the delivering meds, I'm going to go back. There's so many threads here.
That's okay. There's a lot to unpack.
Yeah, and I love it because it's driven by what we are hearing from folks on the floor, right? Yeah. So we are at the point now where we're signing up what we call our early adopters. And so we have a program, T-Mobile came out with this with us, where they want to show CC in their 5G network. And they offer to help pay for the pilot, basically split the cost. So our pilot is $25,000, and it gives somebody the use of the robot for a year. They own the robot, and we'll have the subscription fees for a year. And we use the funds to build what are those key use cases? What are the things? Every place is different, right? How a handoff is done in one hospital can be very different than another. How rounding is done, etc. So we go through a process with the early adopting company to understand what's the best use case to start with, and we go through a process of determining that with them. Then what we do is we build we call it a rehearsal. So we actually build an element. Let's say shift change is the focus. So out of the shift change, we may be looking at a particular element of it. Like, for example, the ambient listening and what people are saying. How accurate is it capturing what is being said? So we go through validation, verifying, tuning it, etc., so that we keep running it through every shift change. It just gets better, the nature of this. And so that's how the adoption on with Continuo, as well as having a robot for a year to be able to not have to deal with any expenses other than, as I say, the $25,000 fee. We earn our keep, from that perspective. Their service is driven to do custom development work if necessary. But I got to really make sure this is understood. Our job is not to be a big software development company. That's not our mission. Our mission is to do what's necessary so that our healthcare system works better, more efficient, and we want to bring some harmony out of this chaos. We want to improve outcomes, right? Length of stay reductions, if possible. Things like this, real tangible metrics that are facing many hospital systems, right?
That word. I like that. I like that objective. Yeah, that's much needed.
Yeah, so we're not into, let's get a big contract and do something very complex because it's fun. There's some of that there, I guess. But it's really, does this make sense? And it's got to be sensible from the stakeholders involved, right? Not just the administration side, but it's got to make sense for staff. And that's been one of the challenges I've found anyway. I'd be curious to know your thoughts, which is a lot of stuff gets pushed top down. And now, you're faced with, we got to do this new thing.
Yeah.
Doesn't quite make sense. It's more work for us. But we got to do it. And, it doesn't pass. Is not successful usually, but a lot of time wasted, a lot of cynicalness, right? About what are they going to try on us next? Why doesn't somebody ask us? Right. So we're trying to take that off the table.
That reminds me of the story I heard from my mom was a 40-year geriatric nurse. And do you remember Victor Kayem, owner of the Patriots back in the day? Yeah. I think he was also he made his income and made his fortune from Norelco, I think. And he had a razor, and the executives, maybe the engineers, they couldn't figure out what was wrong with it. And finally, Victor Kayem had lunch with the laborers, and they said, well, yeah, this is how you fix it. Why didn't anybody tell us this before? He said, well, no one asked. And so going into the trenches, that's what it sounds like what you're saying, is going to the front lines and seeing how this product really, what's working well, maybe what's not, and using that information to keep growing.
Well, we've said no to some things because they didn't make sense. We could have got a contract, but that's not the purpose, right? It has to make sense for all parties. And our view of sense is, first of all and foremost, the people that are going to be needing this capability, will they use it, right? Is it actually going to
Yeah.
help, right?
Yeah.
And not take a predefined definition of what help means. Let them help us understand how the benefit needs to represent itself, right? What's required. So from that foundation, we are motivated to provide different apps on the robot, provide this orchestration layer called Continuo, which, to be quite frank, is probably the first, if not one of the leading orchestration applications that are going to be part of this new healthcare, if you will, view as technology and AI gets more entrenched. There's challenges with the AI world as I see it. The trajectory we're on right now has a lot of VC money and I get it. This is part of how we do things in a free society, which is cool. But if those returns don't come the way they should, obviously there'll be folks that are just not going to be making it. And the marketplace has its way of thinning the herd, if you will. And so we're very sensitive to that backdrop, because when we're little guys, we're not big. And we really have to be very focused. We have to, if we're not delivering something that makes sense for you, that has a clear ROI, that your staff are going to say, wow, the system's got my back. If that's not going to happen, we're probably going to take a pass on it, right? If it's not sensible.
I really get a sense of passion and really the word that I feel is purpose from you. Is there a story behind your drive that is to really to make a difference? Is there something there? Maybe upbringing, maybe a family story, without getting too personal, but like, is there what's motivating you to keep after it day after day?
I appreciate the question, Philip. I really do. And to be very, very frank, very forthright about it, I worked for a large American tech company, and I ran in the Northeast. I was doing water, wastewater work. They're a geographical information systems firm. I went from developing the market up here in a team. It's not just me, but I was heading the team. We moved it into maintenance mode. We're 90+% as a percentage of the market. So I felt there had to be something else I needed to do. I've always been involved with moving in areas that are new, that are a different approach to maybe some similar technology, but addressing these real needs. So I was having a point of, why am I here? And retrospective, I felt a prompting. I'm not a real religious guy. I guess some might say I am. I don't know, but I do believe we're created by a loving Father, and we're meant to be family, all of us. So
Sure,
I have an outlook that says, why can't we love each other? But it's more than that. It's it doesn't happen by chance. We do it by working at it. We have to deal with differences, dialogue, family, right? A good friend of mine said, life is messy, and it's true. But if we approach it that it's meant to be better, then we can, I think, grow from the mess and help bring harmony where there might be discord. All that kind of stuff is it. So anyway, I had a prompting from the Holy Spirit, which was, Jonathan, my older children need help. Will you help my older children? And it was a soft voice. It was a Saturday morning. And if you're familiar with the Northeast in February, it's not a pretty time of the year. It's really depressing, the dirty snow. Anyway, that was a prompting I had Saturday morning. I didn't really know what it meant. I was quiet about it for a while. I started to read some things, and the backdrop too is probably at the height of my game with respect to the company I was with, doing very well. Last thing anybody would typically think of is, you need to change. I mean, you can ride this to, the sunset, but it wasn't to be for me. So I realized that there was a dire need for senior housing, like appropriate housing for our seniors. I started to look into that. The prompting was in February, and by August of that year, resigned from the company I was with. And October 1st, I started out. Then I ended up in that process, designing, working with different architects. We built a memory care community, built a facility. Well, I had to.
Huge project.
It was big. Yeah. But I mean, I feel a little bit like David and Goliath, right? If I'd known how big that giant was, I probably wouldn't have got out on the field. I mean, he's a big guy. Yeah, everyone says that. He's probably not he is a big guy. He's a big guy. But I didn't quite grasp the big and the size, other than I had this prompting from within, and I will make the way. I will make the way. So a lot of prayer, a lot of time. My wife and I, fortunately, we're very close, and we line up in our spiritualness. And actually, she's a very holy lady, and I'm blessed for that. So I had a lot of support to follow and to trust. Yeah, it was pretty tough. I'll tell you, there was no gimmies. There was no, because of this, it wasn't a Walt Disney movie story, right? It was, real
Work.
Oh yeah, Anyway, I was able to get the capital, was able to figure out the site, got to the town. We picked the toughest town in New Hampshire, Rye, New Hampshire. It's right on the seacoast. I mean, you need to get a permit if you're going to brush up against a tree. I don't know.
Let's go.
Pretty intense though.
Yeah.
So we went through that whole process. It started in 2007 in earnest. We got we broke ground in June of 2012. A long process in capital, sorting through the permits and approvals. Went, like I said, through 3 architects, went through 2 different operators during that process. And, focused once the building was built. And the purpose for me to be on this mission wasn't to build a building. It was necessary, though, because I needed to understand better about the realities of memory care, the realities of staffing and dealing with that. So I couldn't have got a better front seat.
Sure.
Then from that, as I said earlier, I realized they're not very good tools here for these guys to be successful. As a matter of fact, it's designed so you got to fire them because they're going to mess up, and family wants somebody to bear the burden usually. So it's usually, the care staff guys get it. It was appalling for me to think that that's the considered operational, way to do things. Yeah. So we created Family Care Space. We empowered the care staff. Care staff loved, they didn't have to wander around looking for chairs or looking for people to sign off on, or where did the resident go, or things like that. All of it's right in their smart device. And they can also connect to the resident, et cetera. So that was a really important journey and a lot of scars along the way to get it to happen. But then the building got sold. The new people wanted to keep Family Care Space in there. Then they sold to a major operator. They had their own system, so Family Care Space didn't have a place for them. So it's not over yet, right?
Sure.
But families really liked it. They were able to stay on top of how mom was doing.
Yeah.
That transparency is just not so. I'll tell you this. This is when I realized healthcare can be very cruel. We had an operator we were looking at to replace one that was really not performing well. And we told the operator, our community has Family Care Space. So staff know where the staff members are. They know where the residents are. They've got the family portal with the appropriate approval. The contact can be reviewed by families. They can interact, etc. And the CEO from this operating company slammed his fist on the table and he said, there's no way. I want to know when we're not doing what we said we do, or families should not know. I don't want that information available, right? Because there's that.
You want the transparency.
Yeah, because it's not a pretty picture. And my response to him was, I would not want to be your mom in one of your buildings. I mean, what would you say to that if you were a son trying to understand how your mother's being treated and you're paying $6,000 a month or more? I also realize I'm alone. I'm out there because this has been not adopted so far, but through CC and through the robotic capabilities, we're including the family portal now. So families have the ability to have updates from care staff, vice versa, this transparency in that aspect. And it's not without guardrails. That's the other thing. There are guardrails here. I found also interesting, most of the operations are the assisted living companies, I'm sure it's everywhere, I'm sure, have a line item for lawsuits or class action suits. Right? That's a real number and they get it, that gets hit. We did not have any legal issues in the 4 + 2, 6 years that it was operating. We actually had staff, as I said, wanted to work there and felt the system was their back. We didn't have very little agency. Flu bugs come through and then, not a lot we can do about that. And when we were selling the building, everybody stayed, which was very unlike what typically happens. So I'd like to think that foundation and the passion to follow how I can help the older children, because we're all kids. We are all kids.
Sure.
But how do we look after our moms and dads, our aunts and uncles, our grandfathers and grandmothers, right? is an indication of how we are as the people.
Who was the one that said, was it Maya Angelou or somebody that said, like, how we treat I'm not sure if it was children. I'm going to butcher this. I'm not sure if it was children and the elderly population, or maybe you said grandparents, or maybe just the older population is a reflection of our society. There's things that we're doing well and things that we all need to work on.
That's the other part of this that I really am very grateful for. I am comfortable saying to somebody, I don't think we can do that, or we don't do that now, but let's talk about how it might work for you, as opposed to, I call it the product speak, right? Where, yes, we can deal with that. When in fact, that's not really the case. But, keep them engaged.
I think what I'm hearing, you're just saying you're honest. You're saying you're just being upfront with people.
Well, you wouldn't have to, you would think you don't have to bring this out as a differentiator. Isn't
Right.
that crazy?
Yeah, it is crazy.
But I'm finding, and we're not perfect by all means, but if we mess up, it's not intended, right? And we'll be quick to speak to that. But I think it goes counter to as well this culture of we want a quick fix now. I mean, part of the chaos, part of the byproduct of being in a chaos environment is you want Band-Aids. You want something quick. You're looking for, help this now, right? I don't have any time to think about. So there's a lot of Band-Aids in this scenario. And we don't want to be caught in that, I call it a downward spiral, where it's like getting hooked on morphine. It's, you feel good for a while, but it's really not the way you should be.
Yeah.
But, those Band-Aids, whether it's a quick fix around something the EMR is not doing, and now you're
duct tape.
Yeah, duct tape. It goes on.
Yes. Right.
But the other side of that is when you're in a chaos situation and you got to get, Mrs. Smith to the next day, you're going to do what you have to, right?
Yeah.
And so, I understand that part. But what we'd like to do with Continuo is say, okay, let's step back now. Let's look at what we're doing. Let's listen to what we're actually doing.
Yeah.
And let's look at how that can be done better, right? And then in a manner where we repeat it, we learn from it, and we add more to it so that there's more. Like, for example, let's say we add pharmacy elements to this handoff so that when I'm going through my, the patients and who's going to be looking after who, any of that pharmacy data that's pertinent for that change and that window of time that the new care staff worker has, that automatically will come into that workflow and be part of that shift change, right, with the to-do list.
Yeah. Sure.
That means talking to the pharmacy systems. That means having the necessary interface or data to come in, and then we can present it in a variety of ways. But for us to do that, we need to spend some time talking about the pharmacy system. Names can be different, captured in an administrative system versus somebody puts same person, but a different name spelling. And how do you deal with that? So we go through that kind of level of granularity to make sure that it's and it's within the hospital or within the organization's IT infrastructure. We're not outside of it. So the HIPAA compliancy, PHI control, and making sure we've got the necessary framework to be compliant. All of that is part of what we deliver in this environment. Very, very important, obviously, for confidentiality, and there's a number of other reasons.
Sure. Ken, I'm not sure, as a small business owner, I'm not sure if every day is diverse, but can you take me through a typical day for you? What does that look like?
Well, today was, I kind of shared this earlier before we got on, where we have this T-Mobile grant program. So we have a number of folks and by the way, I invite any of your listeners that might want to take us up on that to get in touch with myself. It's an early adopter program. Earlier today, I had conversations with a couple of organizations that are interested in that. I have a meeting at 5:00 with T-Mobile to talk about what companies will be looking at to get going on this program.
Yeah.
The program, it gives you the robot. It gives you time for us to do some continual consulting to look at what, workflow makes most sense. And then it gives us a year to provide the support and services for that, which is about $1,000 a month. So that's included in the 25,000. The robot's included, so you keep that, and you have the 1 year of subscription service support for the robot. And we do the explore and develop the workflow, et cetera, with the client. The idea is that the period of time is 45 to 60 days. And after that period of time, we we look at how things are going. We make sure, for example, when the shift changes occur and you're running it, that's the focus. What kind of additional things that might want to be added to that if they want to? Usually there is. We do a certain amount of elements, or we call them instruments, like maybe it's radiology, maybe it's pharmaceutical, but we look at how we can add more value to that for them. There is so that's our early adopter program. And so today was discussing with a couple of organizations that are interested in doing that, discussion with my co-founders on some of we have a couple of investment candidates. We're currently looking at raising funds. We've done our pre-seed, so we're into a Series A, and we're in the process of putting that together. So we had an update on some companies that want to talk to us.
That's where your time is spent, growing, getting the word out and growing.
I've also got some personnel stuff. We're looking to get somebody involved in the clinical side in the next little bit. Probably we've got some nursing resources that we can tap into. And we'll probably look at a physician now. And it may, in fact, be somebody from CDR Health. We'll see. But we'll be talking to them next week about
maybe some nurse practitioners or physician's assistants too.
Yeah, no, we're open. Yeah. Yeah.
Putting you on the spot.
Well, you know what? It's what will make most sense for people to want to move forward, right? And one thing I've learned is no matter how much I have passion for healthcare, I'm not a healthcare person in terms of going through nursing school. I don't have a doctor. I'm an IT guy. I'm a grandfather of 8. I mean, there's a lot of things I am. So I like to pull people together around the right things.
How does the future look for Vcare Companion? I
would say, I'm by definition an optimist.
Me too.
And I love the fact that it's something new, and it's something new that holds so much promise to better the lives of the care delivery folks.
Yeah.
It actually goes right back to something I learned building the memory care community. My batting order initially was build for the resident, then the staff, and then the administration, right? But it mutated.
Yes.
Build for the staff first.
Okay.
Staffing first.
Sure.
Then the resident or the patient.
Yeah.
And then, the third parties, the agencies, the administration, et cetera. And the reason that staffing became first was the very lesson that I learned is without listening to the folks in the trenches.
Yeah.
You're not going to help the people that need the help, right?
Yeah.
It's, go to the firefighter to help understand how to put the fire out. Don't go to the building with a bucket of water.
Yeah. Well said. Yeah. I keep hearing that, as a small business owner myself, you don't learn by watching videos or reading about how to ride a bike. You learn by getting on your bike and you're saying going to the people who are using the product and being in the trenches, so to speak.
And it's so frustrating. I've seen this firsthand where I was with we were on a tour of a community and this was during one of these trade shows. So I was with some other vendors and some other folks that were involved with delivering. I think one was a physiotherapist. So they were hoping to see a client here, maybe, but it was a tour of this community that was doing some pretty cool things. And, I saw it firsthand where you could see the visible, oh my goodness, on this director of nursing regarding all these pitches that people were giving her when she was trying to say, we do have these challenges. And it was like, yeah, you do. And this is what you need to do to solve it. They never even heard. They never even listened. Right. It was just so frustrating for me, trying to learn the environment there and then having so many spiels, so many sales pitches. And I just felt for the nurse and for the people there that, have to endure that.
Where does Vcare Companion want to be in the next 6 to 12 months?
Well, we'd like to have our Series A in place and start our scaling across the country. We'd like to have a major client that we're doing work with that we'd like to see that roll out this year. We'd like to see 6 months from now, we should be with a number of sites that have validated and are now, Philip, you'd be talking to them, not me, right?
Yeah.
As soon as I can get in the background, I love it, right? I'll support the people that, behind the scenes, right? I'll be a cheerleader. That's my job, right? So, but I'd like us to see in 6 months getting to the point where, we have very distinctive goals here, and I'd like to see those. I won't get into the detail of them, but I'd like to see those within a 6 month. Actually, we have a 6 month and we have the year end, and our year end is it's becoming more. If anything, I like to keep a stretch in the equation. So I think I'm going to have to bump up some of the metrics there. But it's been slow. Healthcare is not a fast moving animal. I mean, it is if you're in the trenches trying to.
Maybe that's human behavior, right? Or human psychology. People slow to change, slow to adapt.
Yeah.
And I heard something the
Go
other
with
day
that.
that might apply to what you're saying, but it was like when research comes out, how long it takes to be, like, say, a new way, is like doing something different. The length of time it takes for something to be implemented, I thought it would be, I don't know, 5 years or something. And the person told me it was 17 years. 17 years. From a research setting and data that supports doing something different to getting the word out to making a measurable change in how people operate. 17 years. That's a pretty long time.
No, we can't. I won't accept that for us. I won't. And what's going to drive it, as I said, is the adoption from within the trenches, right? I'd love to think about us as being a verb, right? Have we done Vcare? Have we Vcared our community yet, right? Have we, implemented the various things that are necessary to bring back a sense of sustainability to our care staff, right? See retention increase considerably and attraction increase significantly, right? Give care staff a working life where they're not spending the evenings doing their documentation, right? A lot of these things are very fundamental. That's how broken we are. That we have to fix. And it's a we, right? We'll have a piece of this, but I believe it has to be the next version, if you will, of healthcare in not only our country, but across the world. We seem to have been inundated with very dysfunctional, large corporate monolithic systems that are driving and adding complexities, right? In an area where we should be very focused on the person and not the process should follow us. If the person, common sense is working correctly, right? That it should complement that, not pull away from that. So that's a guiding principle. But I would like to think in 12 months, we would be well entrenched. We can have a number of sites that I can point you to have you talk to so they can speak firsthand. I think that's very realistic, and I think we'll be in good shape for that.
I know you have a big meeting up ahead. I don't want to take too much more of your time. What's some challenges that you're facing?
Biggest one is time, from telling people about us to when something can actually get done. Healthcare moves slow. So generally speaking, has been my experience. So we have a number of things that we've started back in October with the release of Continuo, and we've had some things started with T-Mobile. Took about a year for us to get all that in place. Now it's there. So I'm happy about the progress. I wish it would be faster. So I would say the complexity or the time it takes to get things done has been a challenge. Not that we didn't understand that, but it doesn't make it any easier, right? So we're always looking at how can we be more efficient. That'd be one of the challenges.
Jonathan, what are you most proud of with your company?
That we care about the people. We're human beings, right? How do we care for each other is another one of the themes that we have internally. How can we care for each other better?
I love it. I love it. A little deeper than we hear from the corporate world sometimes. I really like the importance of human relationships.
It's fundamental. If we put money in front of that, we're just, I hate to say this, but a lot of companies, that's it. What's my value add in that? I don't think, will you help my older children is being served that way. That call that I received.
That was a powerful story. I appreciate you sharing that. Is there anything you want to touch upon that maybe I didn't ask you about that you'd like to share with our audience?
I think you've covered a lot of ground here. I would amplify or emphasize the early adopter program. Anybody that's interested in that program, by all means, please be in touch.
Where can they learn more about Vcare Companion? Where are some of the best resources?
I would say the website gives you a good understanding of Continuo. And we've highlighted that. So we've removed some of the content on the robotics side from that. It's focused on Continuo. And so you'll learn about Continuo on the website. They're reaching out to myself, any one of our team. So there's a good contact form and we get back to folks is another way to do it. My email address and my contact information. I'm in LinkedIn as well. So you can learn more about me there. But if people reach out directly to myself, we'll make sure that response is made and we can share with them, what we're doing in the area that might be of interest for them, or they can talk to us about an area they think we should get interested in.
Sure.
We're hoping for that. So I think that would probably be the best way, the website, and then reaching out to us directly. We have explainer videos. We have a lot of different means.
I found some information about your products on YouTube as well, so we can direct people there as well.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Jonathan, thank you so much for spending some time with us today, and really appreciate learning about Vcare Companion and the impact you're making in healthcare. Very cool story, and thank you so much.
I appreciate this opportunity, Philip. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for joining us on another episode of the HealthCast, and stay tuned for more.